and eating in general. Of course, you probably are all familiar with the fact that we use hashi or chopsticks to eat our meals with. If it's a meal of something where you need a fork and knife, of course, that's provided. Curry is usually eaten with a spoon, not hashi or chopsticks. A stew and those kinds of things are always eaten with a spoon as well. Chicken rice with omelet, that's another common dish that you might find that's eaten with a spoon. And of course, if you go to fancier restaurants, they have more of a European style meal, then you're going to have a full set of silverware. Small children here learn how to use chopsticks later. They start off with fork and spoon. They're not just, you know, little babies walking around with chopsticks. So that part always surprises people. They're like, wait, your little kids are using spoons and forks. It's like, yeah, that's what we do. So the other thing is that dishes in general in Japan are really unique in the sense that it's common for things to not match. I was kind of surprised when I first saw stuff because everything was sort of kind of the same, but kind of all different. You know, in the States we usually we pick a pattern for our china, and then that's, you know, what you've got for everything. The salad bowls, the salad dishes, the main course dishes, the soup bowls, the cups, the mugs, all of it all matches. In Japan, things aren't like that. Everything is very different, and especially people's rice bowls. Those are specifically and purposefully different for every person. Kind of reflects that person's character. Sometimes you'll see the same thing for teacups or tea glasses too, that they're always never the same. So it kind of adds for a really colorful meal, and you add to that everybody is served their own portions of food at once. It's not like in the States, for example, where you have, you know, big bucket, or I shouldn't say a bucket, a big bowl of mashed potatoes in the middle of the table and you serve yourself. In Japan, everybody's already got their serving on their plate, and usually, you know, you have your bowl of rice, and then you have little small plates that have different, what we call okazu, or different kinds of things that you eat with your rice, whether that be a meat or vegetable, something like that. So it can be a little confusing when you first come because there's so many plates and dishes. It's also a little hard cleaning up afterwards because not many people have dishwashers in Japan. It's a waste of water and electricity, and so usually people just wash them by hand. Not to mention the fact that people just don't have the space for them. These days, the new dishwashers are so energy and water efficient that it's actually probably better to have a dishwasher than it is to wash by hand. But nobody has room. So you do find some of these little tiny kind of box compartment-like looking dishwashers that you know, just are the same size as a microwave, essentially, that people sometimes have. And lately, if people have a larger home, you might see a dishwasher that's very similar to in the States. But I know I wear gloves in the winter because the water usually isn't hot. You know, turning on the gas to heat the water to wash the dishes is kind of considered a waste of energy, and so it's common to just use tap water, and that can make things hard, especially in the wintertime when it's really cold. So a lot of times people will wear gloves when they're washing the dishes, and that's kind of the way we get through a meal. So I'd be curious to hear if you guys have any unique traditions in your country. I know the States, you know, everybody has their own personalized mug cup for coffee and stuff like that. That's where we kind of let our identity shine with our dishware. And we have, you know, really fancy dishes for fancy guests, and, you know, everyday kind of stuff that we use. You know, there is maybe a little of that in Japan where some of the nicer sets are pulled out. Everything is always sold in sets of 5. That's considered a very lucky, good number, and not an unusual number for a family. So if you buy a kind of dish, you know, that's supposed to be a salad dish, that will be of a similar pattern for everybody. But then it won't match the bowl that your rice is in, for example. That would be different. So